everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dialed In, the podcast about contact centers, technology, AI, customer service stories, and everything in between. My name is Gadi Shamia. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Replicant, a contact center automation company that resolve customer service issues at scale. I've been in the contact center space for 9 years now. Previously, I was the chief operating officer of TalkDesk, a contact center service company, and I'm very glad to be here today. I have a very special guest today. When this guest was introduced to me for the first time, somewhere in 2018, he was introduced to me as a Renaissance man. And I said, what Renaissance man is this person? Apparently, he is a DJ, musician, technologist, artist, yogi, I think a burner, and all of the above. So I want to introduce you to my co-founder and CTO, Benjamin Gleitzman.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. Super excited to be on Dialed In. My background is artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I'm currently CTO. I'm also co-founder at Replicant. And what that means is that I'm setting a technical direction for how we're evolving our product to craft and create great customer experiences.
Cool. Curious, how do you get into the customer service space?
Well, I have an interesting history here. As I was in college at MIT, I worked at the MIT Help Desk, which is the contact center for professors, students, faculty to call in whenever they've got difficulty or problems with, could be an email issue, could be a password reset, could be a strange problem that they're having when they try to log into a shared computer. And so I was essentially a contact center worker who was answering these calls day in and day out. And when I got an interesting call from a professor who's got kind of a problem that might require empathy, a problem that might require creativity, a problem that I'd never heard of before, very exciting call. I love to do the research. The 17th password reset of the day, not really a call that I wanted to take again and again. And so at that time, back in 2004, I wished I had a technology like Replicant that could kind of level me up as a contact center worker to focus on creativity and empathy.
I'm curious about the your experience doing that as a frontline customer service representative. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, we hear a lot from agents that the work is boring, is routine. They have to perform the same task. It's exhausting. How do you remember ending your days or ending an 8-hour shift at a time?
Well, they say that going to MIT is like drinking from a fire hose. And so I remember being very low on sleep. You can have a social life, you can do your homework, or you can get sleep. And so, I'm already having to choose 2 out of these 3. And so I have memories of literally falling asleep at my desk while I'm trying to, answer tickets and take calls. And so the fact that when you bring in a technology like Replicant to provide automation to the contact center, you can shift the agent mindset from how do I plow through as many tickets as I can in the shortest amount of time? Can I get 50 tickets in a day? Can I get 100 tickets in a day done? The mentality shifts into how can I create a great customer experience? How can I make sure that the caller is getting what they want, even if it takes a little bit longer to do some research and to dig deeper? And this is a shift that I think is badly needed in the contact center to move away from the just churning through tickets and getting to a point where you can provide this great customer experience.
Mm-hmm. So Replicant is a great combination of customer service and AI. For most people that track the news, it seems like AI was born somewhere in December 2022, but in fact, you were working on AI for a little bit now. So tell us about when and where you got introduced first to AI.
Yeah, AI has a long and storied history, and I think it's interesting that the world is seeing AI on a grand stage, thinking that it begins in 2023, but it's really got a history that you can trace back to even the 70s at MIT as we see folks beginning to work on neural networks. And so the transformer, which is sort of the building block of being able to pay attention to what's going on in texts and various online media. And we started to see a lot of companies get quite focused on what could we do with transformer technology? What could we do with a machine that would have attention, that could pay attention to what it was reading or what it was seeing. Personally, I got quite interested because of my grandmother, who was a mahjong player. I grew up in West Virginia, but she lived in New Jersey, and so I have.
Tell the listener what a mahjong player is. I'm not sure everybody knows.
So if you've ever played Rummy or Gin, the card game, mahjong is very similar. It's got some tiles, sometimes made of ivory, sometimes made of bakelite, but it's a tile game where you're trying to collect sets of 3, collect sets of 4, and make a special hand out of the tiles. And so I have these memories as a child of going to New Jersey, sitting by the pool where my grandmother would be playing mahjong with all of her friends. I'm an only child. I don't have any siblings. My parents have some siblings, but they don't have any children either. And so I wanted to play mahjong, but I didn't have that many other people to play with. And so I created an early artificial intelligence that could play mahjong with me. And so I would feed in a bunch of games of mahjong, and the neural network would figure out how to play. Very similar to how AlphaGo, learn to play the game of Go, or you have OpenAI working with how to play chess very well. And it became very intriguing that you could just pass large quantities of data into a machine and it would figure out what were the connections, how should the game be played. This was very different than the previous set of rule-based systems where you had a kind of rigid logic that was explaining to the computer how it should do what it can do. And what's often referred to as the bitter lesson is that in artificial intelligence, having more data, having more examples of mahjong games or examples of make model extraction for cars in the insurance space gives you a massive advantage when it comes to building these AI systems.
So let's unpack a little bit some of this technology, because when I talk with people, I think there's understanding of some of the features of AI, but there's no full understanding of how exactly does it work. Even understanding that AI is a statistical tool that at the end of the day make a prediction based on the best available data is maybe new concept for many people. So maybe try explain to the audience the difference between the software we're used to, the algorithmic software that make decisions, and a more statistical software like AI, and how they behave differently, and maybe which use cases are better for each, because algorithmic software is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic question. And I think I would trace this back to the rise of the transistor. So before we had this craze around artificial...
We went to the transistor, okay.
I'm going to go all the way back to the transistor, because at the time, calculation, mathematics was quite expensive. You had to have human computers, often women who were calculating, day in and day out to provide financial data to figure out, targeting systems during World War II. You had people who were employed in this roles. And when the vacuum tube and the transistor come around, you see a massive decrease in the cost to produce math. And so this has a ripple effect through the industry, where now you get the pocket calculator, you get Excel, you get all of these systems that make it really take advantage of the improvements you see around a reduction in the cost of doing math. And this led to a lot of rule-based systems. If my deposit is above $1,000 and I am a gold member, then this outcome should happen in a particular rule-based system. Flash forward to the beginning of the 2000s, and when we get to the transformer model in AI, we're now seeing the rapid reduction in cost when it comes to making a prediction. So we're not just doing mathematics. We're not subtracting one number from another. We're asking a machine, hey, the caller just said, y'all got it, boss. Is that a yes? Is that a no? Is this someone asking for an agent? And the machine is getting pretty good at its statistical modeling of what exactly was said. And I believe now, as you look out into the industry, you're seeing the continuing ripple effects of what it means for a prediction to become cheaper and cheaper. Automation can make its way into contact centers. Automation can make its way into self-driving cars. Automation can make its way into so many systems that maybe we took for granted required a bit of a human touch, required a person in the loop to be able to solve these problems. And I believe that we will continue to see, in the same way that transistors really swept through all industries, you're now going to see the reduction of cost of prediction sweep through many areas that may cause ethical dilemmas for how we use this technology.
That's fascinating. Hopefully everybody understands a little bit more about this crazy machines that use AI and how they do things. Let's go a bit, let's talk about a time between Grandma and building AI games and Replicant. What have you done post MIT? What brought you to Silicon Valley, which is a little obvious, a lot of MIT grads come here, but what was your story?
Yeah, I think it's a tale as old as time. I dropped out of college to move to California. I joined the research department of Google. I left with my thesis advisor, Hal Abelson, and we both worked on a program called App Inventor for Android. And this was a graphical programming language that you could use to create applications for your phone. And so with very little coding knowledge, children could make apps for their phone. My parents were able to make apps for their phone. It really became a democratization of the technology used in order to create software. And even today, here we are, almost 20 years later, we're still seeing App Inventor being the center of the MIT Mobile Learning Initiative. It's being used by children all over the world to teach them how to code. That was kind of my first taste of Silicon Valley. I thought it was such an exciting place to be. There were so many ideas that were flying around at the time, and it taught me to try and get as many people as possible around the table when you're building a new system. If you create software only in code, then you can only have the technologists participate. And if you apply this to the world of contact centers, that's why we get press 1 for this and press 2 for that. It's clearly something that was made by a technologist. If you were to ask a business user, if you were to ask a caller how they would like to express themselves, they want to talk a lot more naturally. They want to speak in a way that is where you don't have to dumb yourself down into the world of machines. And so I began at Google. I eventually left that project, went on to help start a company called Hunch, which was a recommendation system back when online quizzes were quite popular. Go and fill out this simple quiz and we'll tell you a book that you should read. We'll tell you a movie that you should watch. We'll tell you, what festival you should go to this summer. And I was struck by even that early application of machine learning to understand how to take these responses and make recommendations that could be re-ranked on the fly. That was really one of the fantastic abilities of Hunch. Was you could say, you know what, I know you told me I should go to Coachella, but I've been to Coachella and I actually don't like Coachella. So you could say no, and then we could re-rank in real time, like, oh, okay, here's sort of a better recommendation for you. That was a very it was a very fertile time for ML. I think there was a lot of companies that were racing to add this kind of recommendation technology into their platforms in the same way that we see now. Everyone is racing to add, ChatGPT into everything that they can possibly touch.
Yeah, without knowing, we're working at about the same time on the same problem. I work on a product called Busy that was a recommendation engine for restaurants and places that are more connected to personal taste. And you and I like a lot of the same restaurants. Your recommendation becomes stronger. So what's called collaborative filtering, which was very popular way to to find restaurants or to filter through a lot of recommendations from people that may not have the same taste as you are. Side note, love to try everything with ChatGPT, and I was wondering if ChatGPT will do something similar to collaborative filtering. And when Phil's Coffee, sadly, stopped shipping coffee because they had an issue with their roasting facility, I have to find different coffee. So I went to ChatGPT and gave it this collaborative filtering question. Said, hey, I like the 3 coffees of Phil's and this other coffee, this very specific type of coffee. What would you recommend? And right now, what I'm drinking is a ChatGPT recommended coffee from a tiny coffee roaster in Arkansas. So that ships all the way here, which is perfect. I love it. And sorry, Phils, but I may not come back. So some of the same recommendation engines are really now built into this large language model free of charge without any work. Like this question took our engineers at a time, person years to build. Just build this collaborative filtering and fit it with enough data. And now I just type it in and I get an answer, which is pretty amazing. So fast forward, like, life is really interesting, and we meet different people in different times in life. You met Jack Abram, who is another one of the original founders of Replicant at eBay, and somehow your story connected to the Replicant story is also connected to Jack's story. Tell us about your meeting with Jack back at eBay.
After creating Hunch, we had an exit to eBay, and it was really a fantastic sale because at the time, eBay's recommendations were not that great. You might buy a PlayStation, and the recommendation was, "Oh, why don't you buy another PlayStation?" Rather than, "Why don't you buy a controller? Why don't you buy a game?" We can, Hunch had the concept of sort of fitment and understanding how complementary items work together. And so, after joining eBay, I received a late night call. It must have been in my first month of working at eBay, and Jack Abraham is on the other end of the line. It was about midnight, and he says, "Benjamin, I've heard some great things about what you built at Hunch. I'm on essentially a secret mission to completely redesign the eBay homepage." And anyone who has been a long time eBay user knows that it although it's a very powerful website, it felt like it was trapped in the 90s for quite some time. And so Jack and I and a group of 6 people worked essentially on a secret project from the CEO at the time to completely redesign the eBay homepage to incorporate the kind of recommendations that Hunch was making, to incorporate local shopping, which was from a company called Milo that Jack had started, and really try and revolutionize what eBay was able to offer in the market. And I'm proud to say that through the work that we did, it was really this kind of massive $1 billion turnaround for the company. It was quite exciting to work on a project that was that high profile, that had a lot of eyes on it. I think a lot of people were rooting for us to win. I think that a lot of people might have been rooting for us to fail because they had their piece of the homepage that they wanted to retain. And so that was a very interesting education into what it can look like, the politics inside an extremely large company. But the way that we had created this new homepage was we left California. We got away from everyone who was telling us what to do and trying to give us suggestions of what we should create. And we flew to Australia. And this team of 6 people over about the course of 3 or 4 weeks created what would become the new eBay homepage. And the logistics around creating essentially this new company that would, understand how to make the homepage was quite difficult. How will we get internet? Where will we stay? Who's managing the visas? What are we going to do about finances? And so in the process of building the homepage, we, Jack and I and the other members of the team started to understand what it takes to really support innovation on a kind of, greenfield development project. And so after this project, Jack comes back and says, "Hey, that's a pretty interesting way to incubate ideas. What if we took the concept of incubating an idea in a beautiful place like Australia and started an incubator in California that could do the same? You could focus on ideas, but Atomic, which was the company that was created, could provide financial resources for you, have a team of lawyers that could set up the company, could have other companies that would maybe focus on hiring for you. And so you could really get down just to the specifics of what does innovation look like rather than getting bogged down on what a lot of early stage founders have to deal with, especially around fundraising. And so I think that was a very key concept that now has produced a number of really fantastic companies to come out of the Atomic portfolio.
And it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of people listen, think about tech and think about how you get into tech and how people get to work on a company that does pretty well and make their way. And the story of the call at midnight just reminded me that I got into tech because a friend called and said, "Hey, somebody's looking for a QA," which I didn't exactly know what a QA was. I was a student at the time. In this startup, and they're building a whole new product, and I called one of the founders. He said, "Hey, come to interview now." It was 7:30 when I called him. I was in an interview at 9 p.m. Interview at 11, and he's like waving his hand to one of the engineers, saying, "Hey, can you come here and give Gadi a demo of the initial product we're working on?" And I got a demo at like 11 to 12, some training, and start working the next day. I remember coming back home. My girlfriend at the time said, "Are you crazy? You're going to work for this company that interviewed you at 9 p.m. and got training at 12:30 and got home at 1, and you're going to go back and work there?" I said, "Yeah, it's awesome. They have an office and everything." And I was really excited about that and started working there. And kind of the rest is history. This company rolled into a different company, got acquired by SAP. I got to Silicon Valley because of that. And it's so accidental, but yet there is a point where you made a choice. You pick up the phone, you jump on an airplane and went to Australia to do this secret project. There's a lot of a lot of good accidents and good luck in getting into technology or the right products, but also having the courage to do something which doesn't look obvious to others, which is taking a phone call at midnight. Instead of just sending it to voicemail. So we know now how you met Jack and how you got into this atomic family of incubating ideas, but we don't know exactly what drove to the idea to be Replicant specifically instead of everything else you could have built.
So after Hunch and after eBay, after we built the homepage, Jack went on to build Atomic, and I took a bit of a different route. I've always had a bit of an artistic side, and so I left eBay to go start an art gallery of computer code. And we would take technologists, data scientists, and we would pair them together with sculptors, with painters, with creators, and what would technology look like if you could create it just for the aesthetics, not for a quarterly profit, not to impress a board, but just to create something that is really beautiful in the world. And this concept was really based on what I saw as a beautiful algorithm that we built at Hunch that was sold to eBay, and then it ends up selling shoes. It ends up selling PlayStations. I had a bit of a loftier goal for what I want that technology to do. It would make a fantastic dating app. It can find someone who, 90% of things you're exactly alike with them, but there's this 10% that you kind of maybe disagree about. And I think algorithms like this have such promise, and we've seen many companies sort of take advantage of these. So in the process of working at this art gallery, attending Art Basel, learning and understanding about the art world, I really started to think about what does communication look like in a future era. We'd had Alexa around for quite some time. We had Siri around for quite some time. Nobody seemed to be that impressed with these voice assistants. And every once in a while, Jack and I would get together, we'd have dinner, and he would talk about some of the projects he was incubating at Atomic. He had a project that was thinking about the future of Wi-Fi. He had a project that was thinking about the future of payments. Both really interesting ideas, but it didn't quite have the artistic spin that I was looking for. And so when we started to think about the future of communication, why is it that a lot of these virtual assistants are not living up to the promise that we believe that they can? It appeared to not only be a technological hurdle, but it also seemed to be a misunderstanding of the aesthetics of voice communication, that people really do want to speak in their own voice. They don't want to dumb themselves down into the world of machines. They don't want to have to scream for an agent. They don't want to have to press 0. They would just like to be themselves, get in, get out, get their questions solved. And the rest is really history. In the early days, I think we didn't quite know what we needed to build. So we built our own voice. We built our own brain. We built our own transcription. And over time, we've realized where exactly we fit into this ecosystem, how we can work with some of the best technologies that are out there. And now as we see the advent of large language models, we're incorporating that into the technology to continue to push this and innovate further.
So, I've this is an interesting interview and story because we, in some point of this journey, we met, and now we talk, interact, work together daily as the second co-founder and the CEO of Replicant. I have really clear memories of our first meeting. I do remember a greasy pizza box with the letters Julie on it. And I do remember the meeting. What do you remember from the first meeting? And maybe tell us a story about this greasy pizza box that was not new. I have to tell the listeners, it was not new pizza.
There was much to build in the early days. You can imagine all the technology that you have to create in order to create a talking robot and to really make it fast enough to feel real time in its interaction. So Jack and I and other early members of the company had been working on this concept for a good year before we sort of we realized we were really onto something, and we needed to find a fantastic leader who could take us to the next level of innovation. And so I believe you had met Jack at perhaps was it a Warriors basketball game?
It was a Warrior basketball game, and was my daughter's birthday. And Jack, that was entirely stranger, which happened to sit next to me and join the. We brought her a little cake, and Jack joins the singing. So again, a complete random serendipitous meeting. So the first time I met Jack, he sang "Happy Birthday" to my daughter.
And so Jack and I are in a meeting, and he says, I met this guy, Gadi Shamia, and it seems like he would really be a fantastic leader for Replicant. And at the time, you were at Talkdesk COO, and I think you were entertaining a number of potential options of where you would go from there. And the way that I heard it was, you had offers from many different companies who could pay you a much higher salary than what Replicant was able to do. But you were at the Talkdesk Open Talk conference. And the small Replicant team attends the conference really with the specific goal of convincing you that this is going to be the future of contact center technology. And something I remember very vividly is we had given you the pitch. You sort of knew who Jack was, but you said, I want you to pitch directly to customers and hear what kind of feedback they have. And so at the conference, we're pulling aside users of Talkdesk who've been there for many years and saying, Benjamin, tell this customer about what you're working on. And I think with each person that we spoke with, you were able to build some conviction into, wow, this really does feel like an impressive technology that even in its nascent stage, customers seem to want. Hiring is a challenge. Retaining agents is a challenge. Being able to service the number of callers that come into your contact center is a challenge. And we're not going to be able to get out of this dilemma simply by asking agents to churn through more tickets or spend more hours at their desk or fall asleep like I was doing when I was back at the help desk. And it will be through automation that we're really able to solve some of these large problems in the contact center and give the agents something kind of more fulfilling to work on. And so I guess you could say the rest is history. I wonder what you remember of that first meeting.
Oh, I remember asking about the pizza, and I'll tell the story from my side. So one of the first experiments of Replicant that really convinced me there's something there is that the team tried to automate food ordering, outbound food ordering, calling a restaurant and order your food. And it's ended up being a use case we actively have until this very day. We actually, DoorDash now still plays make thousands of phone calls a day placing food orders to restaurants. The first time the bot was successfully was able to successfully order a pizza, the team kept this pizza box. And I think, Benjamin, you still have this pizza box from
it's at my wall. It's on my wall at home, prized possession, and really kind of
Greece keep things in good shape.
It's well preserved. And just to think for a moment about the difficulty of placing a pizza order over the phone. This is not a customer calling in and ordering it. You're outbound placing a call to a restaurant where it's noisy. The person taking the call might have a strong accent. They probably want to get the order really quickly because there's a bunch of other customers that they've got in line. So all of the tricks that putting the clickety-clack typing noise over the call, or there's really no room to be slow. There's no room to be wrong. There's no room to sound robotic. And it's another testament to the team's ability to build a system that even in those early days was able to successfully place these orders.
Yeah, and from my side, I think it's interesting meeting point. From my side, when I met the team in Solo Technology, to me it was obvious that that's how contact centers are going to operate in the future. And it was not that I had this idea for years and years and years, and finally I found this team that built it. It was a moment, it was a watershed moment for me. I saw this technology, I listened to this pizza ordering call, said, wow, the best way to help agents in the contact center, instead of building more and more and more software, we'll dumb agents down. We'll tell them what to do. We'll make sure their calls are not more than 8 minutes long or 6 minutes long. The best way to help the agents is actually take away tasks from their hands and automate them so they can focus on the more impactful, more interesting, more creative problems. It was this ATM moments. We all, I think ATM is now becoming an old example because nobody needs cash anymore, unless you tip, which is the only reason why I have cash. But if you think of the ATM kind of watershed moment, was bankers moved from being clerks. A banker before the ATM days was a clerk. The banker was not different than someone in a grocery store that, you know, check you out, calculate how much you owe, take the money, give you change. That's what bankers do. And by the creation of the ATMs, we're able to take the bankers away from this clerk work and let them do something more interesting. And all of a sudden, bankers are college educated. Bankers are giving you financial advice. They help you save better for your pension, and so on. So I thought of it as exactly the same watershed, and it was so obvious that I didn't think I could do anything else. It was very clear to me, this is the only thing I want to work on, because how obvious and inevitable this revolution was in my mind. So, you know, fast forward a little bit, as we're getting kind of close to time. How is Replicant different today, maybe, compared to this moment with the pizza box and the early customers?
Well, I do remember in the early days, you said, Benjamin, how ready is this to sell? And I said, Gadi, we're ready. You know, we're ready to go to market. And with that particular food ordering use case, you know, you could probably say with a straight face that we were ready, but there really is so much more to the platform. There's so much more to creating a great customer experience than just a thinking machine. You have to think about, well, what happens when I need to escalate the call? Because the thinking machine is by design not going to take all the calls. What happens before the call, the kind of API integrations and these pieces? What does it look like to self-serve? Is this something where Replicant has to make all the changes, or can you change scripts? Can you change flows? Can you have a little bit more control over what it takes to build these machines? And it almost harkens back to the early days when I was working on these graphical programming languages, where what is the right level of abstraction? What is the right level for, you know, I would like everyone to be able to craft great conversations. You shouldn't have to have a PhD in conversation design to make these things work really well. And so I would say the biggest change that's come from the early days to now, or maybe two of them, is the introduction of conversational powers, which is so instrumental in making sure that we can meet customers where they are. An example might be address collection. The earliest days of address collection was, what's your address? I'll look it up on Google Maps. Okay, that looks like it's a correct address. Then we start working with emergency roadside customers. Where are you located? I have no idea. It's midnight. I don't even know what state I'm in. I'm scared. Okay, let me send you a link to an SMS. You can open it up. We'll get the GPS on your device. I'll help you with that right away. We'll have a tow truck out to you in 15 minutes. Then we start working with trucking agencies. Truckers want to give us latitude, longitude to know their address. Then we start working with food delivery companies. I'm at the Hilton. Which Hilton? Where are you? Even with the smartest AI models, these learnings of all the different ways that people can express themselves when collecting an address, not to mention, can I get your address? No. Can I get your address? Why? It's through tens of millions of calls that we were really able to understand all of the different ways that people are going to want to express themselves. So that's a huge advancement since the early days, is the understanding and the know-how of 50 plus conversational powers and all the ways that people will speak.
So resolving tens of millions of calls later, what surprised you? What was the belief you held? I'm reading now Adam Grant's book, Think Again. Highly recommend this book from another shave head guy, which must be smart because of that. And he talks a lot about this idea of how you think again. You have these assumptions and you face with certainty when you make them, but then things change. Again, highly recommend this book. What have you thought to be true 5 years ago and you're surprised about today?
The pace of innovation is getting exponentially faster. And I believe we're moving from a realm of who will have the most cutting edge AI models and who can craft the most cutting edge AI models into who can harness data in the right way to, because the playing field is getting, in some ways, leveled. Everyone has access to these LLMs. The cost is being driven down. And so the moat that you have in this world is the data that you're able to obtain, the data to do regression testing, the data to understand all of the different ways that people might want to express themselves, the data to fine tune or retrain some of these large language models to be even better at a specific use case. And so the pace of innovation and this change from trying to build the best, fastest model into how can you harness your data in order to make the correct decision is instrumental. And I think this is something that makes it quite difficult for new entrants into the space. Imagine you're a company and you want to go build, something on Dialogflow or on Lex. It's very difficult to understand all of the edge cases around address collection. And sure, you can get, when someone gives you the address right away, you can go and do it. But for large swaths of callers, especially for those callers who say, why do you need it? The correct response to that is not, sorry, I didn't understand you. It's, we need, we need your address to dispatch the tow truck as fast
easy to build happy path, really hard to build complicated machines. I tell you one more thing that surprised you, but you probably don't remember. Back in the day, Benjamin, you were very concerned about agents and would we hurt agents? Would they lose their jobs? And I remember doing a lot of research. This was before ChatGPT made it really easy to do research on what's the impact of new technology of workforce, and clearly saw that any technological wave actually led to increased productivity and increased employment over time. So on a macro level, we knew that. What I didn't know, and surprised me to this very day, is how much agents love the fact that Replicant is there, and we heard it from every customer. Just the other day, we have one of our customers, CAA, attending one of our webinars, and she talked about significant decrease in short-term disabilities every claim from the time Replicant was introduced, and decrease in or increase in retention. So agents stay longer, have fewer health issues, which is such a great thing for a contact center, because number one issue.
My jaw fell open when I heard that statistic, because it has been a fear of mine since the early days. You've heard me harp on ethics since the beginning. I do not want to be the creator of a technology that goes off the rails, that had the best of intentions, but ends up being used for nefarious purposes. The ethics are so important to what I want to create. And the impact to agents has always been something that we believed would be positive, something that we believed would be impactful. But now here we are many years in, working sometimes 3-4 years with some of our customers, we see that the agents are getting more rewarding, jobs. The agents are on short-term disability less. The agents are moving away from what I spoke about at the beginning. You don't just have to churn through tickets anymore. You can really spend the time to create a relationship with the caller, because the automation's got the rest of those minutia calls. It's got your back, so that you can really focus on what's going to be meaningful for the agent and the caller.
So I'll ask a couple more quicker questions, and then we can jump into our speed dial, which is how we're going to wrap up this conversation. You talk about the pace of innovation, and of course, everybody is now fascinated by ChatGPT and the introduction of large language models, LLMs. What is the impact, in your opinion? What would be the impact, in your opinion, on the contact center industry with this new technology?
Well, I think for some, it's going to greatly increase the pace of how technology moves. For some, you're going to see major missteps. I think the biggest risk we have right now is around safety and control. If we've got a technology that feels as if you could connect callers directly to the large language model, and yet when you do that, it works 70% of the time, it works 80% of the time, it might even work 99% of the time. But if there's a risk, even a 1% risk, that occasionally the large language model will go off the rails, and you're calling into an airline, you've got an issue with your bags, it suggests that you should, maybe next time you should use another airline because you get free baggage. That's an unacceptable outcome for the contact center. And so we've put so much research into bulletproofing, into putting these firewalls in between the generative output that can come from the large language model and what will be spoken by our thinking machine. And it comes back to a lot of these conversational powers, understanding everything that could potentially happen on a call, so that you're only using the generative aspects for what it's really good at. I'm so impressed that you can pass in a phrase like, it's a hotel reservation. Well, it's going to be me and my hubby and my 9-month-old. show me a conversational system, from before large language models were produced that could understand that utterance. Now we're really starting to see that, but it comes with a particular risk if you don't think deeply about how to make this safe for callers.
Yeah, so the biggest change for the caller, they can call today, they can get a roadside assistance, they can check in to a flight, they can add baggage, they can do all the things on the current technology, the old quote unquote transformer technology that companies like Replicant use today. What you say is in a year from now, year and a half from now, or even 6 months from now, things are moving really fast. People will just interact with this bots in a much more flexible manner. And to be able to resolve more issues.
Yes. Yeah. I think the two major outcomes are you're going to get higher resolution rates because you're not going to get as much drop off of the machine not understanding the caller, and you're going to get your problem answered faster. The old method, while they could collect 3 pieces of information on the same turn, you had to do a lot of confirmations. You had to put a bunch of additional, I got February the 5th. Is that right? Now you can skip a lot of those turns and just go directly to not having to confirm as many of these conversational turns for callers. So it's higher resolution and it's faster time to value.
Cool. So I guess we are ready for a speed dial. In a speed dial,
Great.
I'm going to ask you several questions and you have to be brief. And since you have great oratory abilities, I trust that you're going to nail it. So my first question is, what book are you currently reading? And maybe what of the book that you last read and how it impact you?
Ooh, I'm reading a book right now called Why Machines Will Never Rule the World. And it talks about a lot of the fears of AGI, sort of a general artificial intelligence that might become more powerful than humans. I think that a lot of these fears are a little bit overblown, and yet we should still be focusing on some research around how we provide safety for these models.
When you think of a brand that does customer service really well, and your heart's like, yeah, which brand comes to mind?
I think the innovation around what the AAAs are doing is really phenomenal to see. I remember calling AAA and not having a very good experience before they used Replicant, and now I'm so proud of my friends, my parents, people in my social circles have called and said, "Wow, that was a really fantastic customer experience," and so that's been a great partnership.
And someone made a comment in the webinar yesterday. Said, I called because AAA was there. I called AAA and it was so great, such a great experience. That warms my heart. An agent, customer service agent of the future. Which personality trait do you think they need, and how would they prepare for this time where machines can solve all these issues really quickly?
I think being curious. I think being inquisitive. A lot of the minutia calls are going to be handled by the machine. And so if you get to a person, you got to ask why. What was it about this call that is going to be a little bit non-standard, that's going to be a little bit different, and really digging in and creating that relationship through curiosity with the caller. Every time I've experienced that with an agent where they really cared and wanted to understand what my problem was, it's created a better brand experience.
So quick question, which is somehow personal. What do you do for yourself every day, which is not work, not for anybody else? What do you do for yourself every day? Almost every day. Good enough.
I'm trying to be more in my body. I think my career has often led me to be in my head and in my mind. And especially at work, people are coming to me with, hey, Benjamin, how do I solve this problem? What should we do about this pace of innovation? How should we kind of solve this issue? It's very much cerebral. It's very much in my head. And so anything that can get me back into my body, it could be yoga. I'm now traveling in Miami. It could be swimming. Even just stopping to think, what am I feeling right now? It's been a major boon, especially in a world where our attention spans are being cut up. We spend our lives in a lot of small Zoom boxes, and so anywhere I can invite mindfulness and being in my body is a huge benefit.
Well, my last question is Replicant in 2 years in one sentence.
Ooh, better customer experiences through automation. It's going to get better and better. And, we really are just getting started. I think it's quite impressive what we're able to do today, but, give us a little more time. And I think we're really going to start turning heads.
That was a phenomenal conversation, Benjamin. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for our audience for dialing in. And until next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gadi. And thanks to the entire Replicant team and all of our partners. It's been such a fantastic journey to build this together.
All right. Thank you.